Welcome back, y'all. This is another episode of the Blacktop podcast. Had a little bit of a break, life's been going on because this is not our full-time job yet. But yeah, no, we got all our stuff going on. For me and Christian, we're still in school. It's like the last little bit. Ruben's off working full-time. The man's out there grinding. We're all out here grinding, but we're back. So how it's going to go today, we're obviously going to start with our takes. But from there, we're not necessarily going to look up the playoff matchups, but rather the teams that are in the playoff picture right now. So we're going to go through the 1s to the 10s. The only team outside of the play-in that we're going to be talking about now it was technically the Spurs at the beginning of the day, but alas, the Lakers are officially out of the playoff picture. But let's not talk about that right now. We're going to talk about that later. And from there, we're going to go to the Blacktop Showdown, where currently the score is Christian with 4, Ruben with 5, and me with a one and only. So maybe this will be my day to make the comeback, but alas. Let's get right into it. Let's talk about our takes. Do any of y'all want to start?
I got one.
Okay. Ruben's got the fashion. I'm ready. Okay,
I got one. Scotty Barnes will win Rookie of the Year. Scotty Barnes will win Rookie of the Year. Now, I know everyone is saying, Evan Mobley, he has been a defensive juggernaut. Offensively, he has been dynamic for them. Obviously, he's been one of their top scoring options on that team. He's had a really good season. They've been successful, and he's had an impact on that. Evan Mobley is getting a lot of grass-fed buckets, man. A lot of that is basically off of working with Darius Garland. And on the defensive end, you're now seeing that without Jared Allen in the lineup, how much they are struggling to guard teams and how much they are struggling to defend the paint. And a lot of that is basically because Evan Mobley has free reign to defend wherever they are, and Jared Allen is that second line of defense. And he has been one of the best defensive anchors in the league this year. And you see how much there's been a significant drop-off. In fact, I think I heard on a broadcast the other day that Cleveland is one of the worst defensive teams since Jared Allen's gone down. So that's a huge, huge impact to their team. And so I think in many ways, Evan Mobley, who I still think is a very special talent, and I think will be one of the generational talents in this league, I think his impact this year is a bit overrated considering all the other pieces he has around him. Now, in line of that, I think Scotty Barnes has closed the gap in terms of advanced statistics. If you're looking at the advanced stats itself, he's closed the gap on offensive rating, defensive rating, the net rating, the player efficiency rating. You're looking at all of these different advanced stats, and Evan Mobley and Scotty Barnes are apples and oranges. And the thing where Scotty Barnes has the advantage, in my opinion, in terms of the rookie year so far, is now Toronto is a better team. They're in the standings. They're tied for 5th with the Chicago Bulls at the current moment. Actually, I think Chicago won tonight. Am I correct? They are. So Toronto's a half a game back of them. But, literally just a couple hours before that, they were tied for 5th. Scotty Barnes has the advantage on all the counting stats. He's played 1 through 5 all season long. He's also averaging 36 minutes per game, so you're seeing his impact on the team. And mind you, he's played a number of different roles this year, considering OG Anunoby's missed a lot of time. Pascal Siakam missed the first quarter of the year. Fred has missed a lot of time. A lot of the key players have missed a lot of time. The one consistent in that lineup all year long has been Scotty Barnes. So, I would like to make that argument. Scotty impacts the game so many different ways in a dynamic way. He's scoring the ball. And listen, everyone thought that he was going to be a guy averaging 8 points out of his rookie season. And he's exceeded expectations way beyond that. So, just in terms of winning, impact, counting stats, all the things that you like to see in a Rookie of the Year candidate, plus how marketable he's been, and I think he's a far more marketable player than Evan Mobley. Unless Cade Cunningham comes out here and scores 40-point triple-doubles the last 7 to 6 games of the year, I am strongly in belief that Scotty Barnes will win Rookie of the Year. And I don't know if you guys want to chime in on that or go straight to your takes, but I'm confident Scotty Barnes will win Rookie of the Year. If he doesn't, it's a travesty.
No, yeah, I remember saying for me, the big thing is the team success. And now that the Raptors have closed that gap, I think Scotty is really, overtaken Evan in the race. And I think, yeah, I mean, you were saying earlier, Ruben, that his defensive efficiency when it comes to Evan Mobley is kind of overrated in the sense that Jared Allen's there. And now we're seeing that, he's still a solid defender, but, without that, the equivalent of the David Robinson, because, I mean, Tim Duncan, a lot of people are saying this is the best defender since Tim Duncan, considering that he is in that potential to get not just an all-rookie team, but an all-defensive team. A lot of that is hinged on the fact that, he can not necessarily gamble on offense, but he doesn't have to be as sharp based on the fact that he has Jared Allen. I think Scotty, I'm a big Scotty fan. I think the fact that he can run 1 through 5, I think he's not only going to be the rookie of the year, but in my opinion, I think he has the best kind of ceiling, and that the way basketball's turning towards, I think, is perfect for a player like Scotty. And I think the fact that he's shooting decent from the 3, because I didn't expect him to have that kind of range based on like what I saw. And, how his
29%.
29% is pretty solid for a rookie. But no, I definitely agree. I think the fact that the Raptors have been able to close the gap, and now that they're in the actual playoffs and not the play-in, if he doesn't, it makes no sense.
I want to add, though, one thing I forgot is he's had way bigger explosive performances this year than any of the rookies as well. And I think there was one night where he had like 37 and something, and he joins a very small list of rookies that have done that in their first season. And I think included in that list was like LeBron, Luka, and a couple other names. But anyways, I digress.
I know Scotty don't care about LeBron. He's a Kobe fan.
Dude, he commented on another Instagram post afterwards where he was like, "Nah, man, y'all getting it all twisted. I still love LeBron though, so don't hate on it. Don't hate on him."
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that. It's a pretty sound take. I think, like, to be honest, the only reason he wouldn't win it is, like, I think he is a more marketable player, but I think it's just the fact that it's Toronto. That in my mind would be the only reason that like they would give it to someone like Cade or Mobley, is just because they're literally American teams. It's sad but true. But literally beyond that.
If Cade gets it, I think that's fucked, because he missed the first couple months of the season, and even though he's been like solid, makes no sense for him to make it. All right, Christian, you want to go next or?
Sure. This take is brought to you by my opinion from literally finding out that the Clippers won 10 minutes ago. But I think they have the potential to be an upset team. And I think my reasoning behind that is because they have kind of the same core team minus Pat Bev going into this season. I think with having Paul George back, he's obviously shown that he hasn't really missed a beat. They beat Utah, which in my opinion is a pretty solid win, considering that Utah has kind of been the same strong team all throughout the season. I mean, I'm not one for over-evaluating regular season games, but I do think the fact the Clips are kind of getting more towards a healthy version of themselves. They will have to go up against the Suns, which I think is the biggest thing. I could see PG. I could see a scenario where they are a competitive team in the playoffs this year, because I think if they were to come up against Memphis, for example, I think they could go to the second round and possibly beyond that. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that take, actually, because now that Paul George is back, this is a team with also a lot of playoff experience too, right? I mean, it would be nice if they were fully healthy, and I think we haven't heard any new updates regarding Kawhi Leonard, but they were flirting with him being back around this time. I don't think he's going to come back this season at all, considering where they are at the standings. They're not going to win the championship this year, and I think they know that. But they have Reggie Jackson, they have a Robert Covington, they have got Paul George back in the hood. They obviously have Marcus Morris. I mean, they have they have the pieces to have been through playoff experience, and that's something that Memphis lacks overall. Even though they made it last year through the play-in, Yeah, it's a competitive team, and they've been able to stay afloat all season long without their best guys. So there's no reason to believe that. Along with a championship level coach like Ty Lue, we all forget how good of a coach he is, especially in the playoffs. Yeah, they very well could upset a team like Memphis.
Yeah, I think in addition to that, I just read Norman Powell is doing like live work. I think him coming back is still a bit of a stretch, but if you're able to get a guy like that, who's like a 20-point per game scorer, even off the bench, I mean, they're looking better than their run last year. Even though the fact that, I mean, they had Kawhi for the first round, but the bulk of that playoff run was based on the fact that PG and Reggie were going crazy. And I think if you run that back, and you have, you know, Rocco, who's an all NBA defender, and Norman Powell, who's a, you know, good 3-and-D player. Yeah, I think definitely if I'm the Grizzlies, that's probably the one team I wouldn't want to go up against in the first round, just based off the fact that you have the confidence from going to the conference finals last year. Was it conference finals or second round? Either way, like a deep playoff run last year, and now you have those same guys who had to keep this ship afloat without their two best players. I agree. I wouldn't be surprised if they do make the upset, and then if they don't, it's just kind of like, oh, you know, what'd you expect kind of thing. But no, that's a good take.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about like the structure of the West right now, it's pretty impressive that they have stayed afloat, considering that they're ahead of teams like the Pelicans, the Spurs, the Lakers. I mean, most especially the Lakers. Like, for a guy like Reggie Jackson to hold down the ship better than, I'm not saying LeBron hasn't been holding down the ship. He's obviously been doing his part, but there's obviously something going on that the Lakers are lacking that somehow the Clippers are doing better in. So yeah, I just think having PG back, like, and I'm pretty high on PG because I know at the beginning of the season he was like an MVP favorite, and obviously that was beginning of the season takes. But I think like he looks the same, and yeah, I think they have the opportunity to make another run.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, mine. This one's very near and dear to my heart for two reasons. This man anchored my fantasy team, and he's also the anchor of Christian's team's defense, Robert Williams. So, first of all, get better soon, Rob. Time Lord, man, that's fucking tragic. Career year, an all NBA defender in my opinion, and just to have it come back like that, I don't know. But back to my take. So, I believe Robert Williams III, the Time Lord, will be the next player to record a 5x5 game. And in my opinion, the 5x5 is probably the most impressive line aside from a quadruple double. Because I mean, if you think about it, there's been 20 5x5s all time. Like at this point, a triple double is kind of expected for a lot of people. Like there's been over 100 in this season alone. But the 5x5, the Andre Kirilenkos of the world, the Hakeem Olajuwons of the world, the George Gervins of the world, the Yusuf Nurkic's of the world, Robert Williams is going to stab himself into that. You know, aside from that, I think, man, I just love Robert Williams. In my opinion, I think he has potential to be a future DPOY. He plays a lot bigger than his 6'8 frame. And in my opinion, he's probably the most valuable player contract-wise at 4 years, $48 million. That is insanely such a good deal. And yeah, he already had one pretty close game this year. I think he had like 12, 5, 3, and 3. And I remember seeing that. I was like, oh, this shit might happen. Like, I had Yusuf Nurkic the year he did his 5x5. But yeah, I think Robert Williams, you know, this dude's a different breed. I think he's got next to get that 5x5.
I like Robert Williams, man. It's too bad, that injury. And I think, like, if you think about it, he is probably the most valuable player on that team because he anchors that defense, and the Boston Celtics are the best defensive team in the league. So it's kind of like those things are very much connected. And yeah, I agree with the 5x5 thing. He's an underrated playmaker, actually. And I think if he continues to hone in on his skills, I think he can be that kind of center that in the Bam Adebayo role. But I think he's got just better athleticism on the defensive end, and I think that also helps him on the offensive end. I think what he does is so good, and it's great that he has a veteran like Al Horford to learn from. Because you see how Al Horford is such a cerebral player. And, if you hone in on those skills alongside the experience that you're going to get from playing alongside a guy like that, I think 5-5 those 5-5 nights are going to be a typical thing for Robert Williams. I think. I know, Chin. This is your team, man. What do you think?
No, I definitely agree too. Like, I don't think there's another player in my mind that can really kind of have that kind of feat, because I think Robert Williams has the capability of to really, yeah, like anchor the defense, how Ruben mentioned, in a way that no other player really does in the NBA, minus maybe a few players here and there. But I think, like, again, with TJ mentioning his frame, like, he is, like, I think one of the more agile players that are up and coming. And I don't really see a scenario where it's unprobable. Like, I think he will do it. Yeah, I don't think there's a question of, like, if he will. It's like when he will. And I think it's unfortunate that, he's going through a meniscus injury of all things. You kind of hope he just comes back, in the kind of same time gesture that was playing at currently. But no, I think I completely agree. The only other player, I think we've talked about him enough, but in my mind, okay, maybe he lacks in certain places, but I think maybe Miles Turner could do it as well. But I think that's just because we're high on Miles Turner on this podcast. So that's another take for another day. I think we can roll into the next segment.
Respect, Miles Turner. Hope you get better soon too, bro. All right, so from our takes, I'm just going to rifle off these teams and we'll give our opinions on how we think their season's been going post All-Star break and with them heading into the playoffs. So I'm going to start. I got the Heat. So I think this team is absolutely loaded. They have that dog factor. Like, literally, name another team that's willing to fight their own teammates. But then literally write it off as just like, that's how we are. That's how competitive we are. I think that's what you need in the playoffs. You can't be all buddy like, oh, bro, next time. Nah, in the playoffs, it's do or die. If your man fucks up on an assignment, you got to let that dude know. And I think they do it in a way that's necessary to the fact that that's Heat culture. I mean, Udonis Haslem was literally threatening to beat up Jimmy Butler. And when it comes to them being loaded, I mean, Omer Yurtseven, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, these are all guys that have been write-offs, but they've got an immense value out of the Heat when they have been, like, dealing with the injury bug, when Bam Adebayo had his, like, fucked up thumb earlier in the year. And I just think that this is a team that's poised for a deep run, definitely. Yeah, what y'all think?
Yeah, I like the Heat. I like the Heat's chances this year. I think you're also seeing how important Kyle Lowry is to any franchise and how big of an impact winning player that he is, right? Like, I know he's missed significant time as well throughout the year, but when he's played, right, this team just looks so cohesive. They play really well together on both ends of the floor. I mean, they have the pieces. They've got the shooters. They got the scoring options. They got the defenders. They've got depth. They've got the coach. They've got the point guard. They have every piece covered, and I think they can hang with pretty much any team there is in the league. And if you're looking at star-studded matchups, their stars are a bit unconventional in a sense, but they've got all-stars. You've got Kyle, you got Jimmy, you got Bam. And Tyler Hero very much could have made a case for an all-star nod this year. So they've got everything. There's nothing much more for me to add other than the fact that Kyle Lowry is going to be such an important piece, and I think we're going to see that this year. But Kyle can only take this team so far because while Jimmy's had some awesome nights and Bam has had some awesome nights, they've also been very inconsistent this year. And so I think a lot of what their success will fall upon is if these guys can actually perform in the playoffs the way they were able to do in the bubble, the way that a lot of fans and media are expecting them to perform. And, I hope that a lot of the blame doesn't fall on Kyle Lowry if he has a game where he has 0 points and 8 assists and 6 rebounds. Because a lot of what he does and impact a team always comes from impacting the other parts of the game, right? His ability to see the floor and just, control the pace of the game. Like, there's very few guys like that. LeBron James, Chris Paul, Kyle Lowry. Like, these are probably the very few names that control the pace of the game and are able to manipulate how the game is played. So we shall see. They have all the pieces. And I think the biggest thing to take away is Kyle is a winning player, and that success he had in Toronto isn't a fluke.
Yeah, I think to add on super quickly, I mean, there isn't really much to add on. I just think they are like in the East, relatively, they are the team to beat. I think they just have the best constructed team. Maybe minus the Bucks as well. Um, I think they're both really up there in that conversation for like favorites to win. Um, I would be high on the Celtics too in this conversation, but the Robert Williams injury is quite a big factor. But that's all I really have to say. I think they're one of the teams to beat.
I can't believe I forgot the wagon, Kyle Lowry. But all right, Christian, you got the Sixers. Let us know.
The Sixers. Sorry, are we just going like?
Yeah.
We're just bouncing. Okay. Man, the Sixers. I think they're an interesting team. I think they're like contenders for sure. I think post All-Star break, obviously they've acquired James Harden, and that has really changed the structure of how they play. I think the only factor I think I see in them with like a playoff run is that like obviously Joel and James will be going into the playoffs together for the first time, but they both obviously have their fair share of playoff experience. So I wouldn't say that's a concern, nor is it an advantage. I just think it'll be interesting to see how they play in a kind of clutch scenario, like night by night, because they've kind of going into games post All-Star break, they were kind of blowing out teams when they did win. And obviously they were kind of just shining on everyone, but I'm not a huge person to over-evaluate the regular season, as I kind of said earlier. So I am interested to see how they play in clutch situations together.
Yeah, I think only thing I really have to add on is the fact that I think when it comes to the Sixers, they have the most pressure to win this year. Outside of maybe the Nets, I think when it comes to everything you gave up and how your future is very much hinged on the fact that we got this guy because we know Joel's in his prime. Based on the fact of that, they're firing on all cylinders at this point, in my opinion. Aside from the fact that they lost against the Bucks, but no, yeah, I think evidently when it comes to looking at all these teams, when it comes to who's got kind of the most pressure on their back, based off the fact of how the league is changing as well as the city they play in, I think it's the Sixers.
Yeah, I have nothing else to add. The Sixers have a lot of pressure for sure. We'll see. We'll see how they mesh in the playoffs. I mean, James Harden has had a lot of inconsistency, during playoff time. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs. But he's never had a guy where he could rely on like Joel, and that'll be interesting to see. Yeah, James said after the game today that they're a work in progress in the clutch time, and admittedly, so they haven't spent a lot of time there because they've been winning a lot of games with big leads, right? So we'll see how that works. I mean, they lost to Toronto also in a situation that came down to the clutch time. So they'll get more reps in the playoffs. We'll see if they can actually work through it because they're going to get thrown into the fire and they're going to be expected to perform. But I know I've got my who are we talking about next, TJ?
Hi, Ruben. You got the Bulls.
I got the Bulls. Yeah, I'm not high on the Bulls this year. I mean, I liked their... Initially, they came out strong when they were healthy. They had all the pieces. I think Lonzo Ball is so important to this team, more important than people do realize, because he is such a glue player. He's a very heady player, and he's very good defensively. And we've come to know that this season, and how they were a very good defensive team when he was healthy. And he had a big part in that because at the head of the snake, you've got to be able to do a lot to stunt dribble penetration. You're at the top of the defense. So, if guys are blown by you, you're opening up a lot of offensive opportunities. And in that case, Lonzo Ball did break up a lot of that. So not having him for such a long period of time, I know they got Patrick Williams back, but they've kind of fallen so far below the radar that they're not really a threat. And I think if there's one team that any of these teams would like to see in the playoffs, it would be the Bulls. Because DeMar, as great as of a season he's having, has not been a good playoff performer. And that's just a fact, right? And a lot of that fell on Kyle Lowry's shoulders, but a lot of that falls in the fact that DeMar can't produce or isn't very much of a threat in playoff time. Zach LaVine has spent very little time in the playoffs. Vooch as well. A lot of these guys don't have a lot of playoff experience, and or like at least deep playoff experience, right? So, and we're seeing that now. Like this team is kind of crumbling, and I wouldn't be surprised if Toronto does actually end up taking the 5th seed. Even though they won against the Wizards tonight, games are getting harder for them. So I don't like their chances in the playoffs. I think in terms of matchups right now, they're 5th. And let's say they fall to 6th at most. They play the Celtics or the Sixers, and I like the Celtics or the Sixers against the Bulls. I just do, and I think it'd be hard. It'd be hard for me to see otherwise, just from what we've seen the last few months. But yeah, I'm not high on them. I don't think they'll get past the first round.
Yeah, no, my sentiments exactly. I think the fact that they don't have a lot of their primary guard play is a big hindrance. Because I mean, do y'all remember when the Lakers picked Lonzo Ball because they compared him to Magic Johnson? Now, obviously that's not the case, but I think also the fact that you're comparing him to someone like that can't be taken lightly. Magic Johnson is unarguably, if not, actually no, unarguably, when it comes to the pure point guard, he's like the cream of the crop. There's no one better than him. And not having, not necessarily that kind of player, but somebody who has flashed certain potentials of that, it's definitely a big thing down the stretch to not have. But yeah, Chin, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse. I just think really the way I would word it is that they're not really operational without Lonzo Ball. I think all 3 of their other stars, like Vooch, Levine, and DeRozan, they all really aren't producing as effectively without a point guard who can facilitate and really run the game for them. Like, I know Ruben was kind of mentioning that there's, players like Lowry, who else were you saying? Chris Paul, LeBron, that could really slow down the game ways players couldn't. And I think Lonzo is really developing into that type of player, but they don't have that. And so I think their season is looking like a bit more of a scratch than a dub for sure.
All right, so it's back to me now. Well, the Bulls season might be a scratch. Who's not gonna have a scratch of season? The Bucks. So, I mean, it's obvious that the Bucks are like one of the teams to beat this year. There's no doubt about that. But for me, I think the main thing that I've always been, and I think has been the storyline in the season, is that this team hasn't been healthy technically for like the whole year. Brook Lopez just came back, and I think with that, a lot of the potential to repeat. It's contingent on the fact of how well Brook's legs get back under him. He's had a solid restart. Well, I mean, he played the first game, so I don't know if you call it restart. But when he's come back, he's been pretty solid so far. So I'm very happy about that. I think it's just the fact that with Brook Lopez, even if he's not as much of the defender as he was before, just the fact that you have a 7-foot, 300-pound guy in the paint, psychologically, you're going to think twice about driving into the lane, no matter how well of a defense he's playing. And yeah, I mean, the win tonight against the Sixers gives a lot of momentum to that. But for me, the Bucks could finish 6th, and I'd be okay with that. Because, when it comes to the playoff, that's a whole different game. And just the fact that they're starting to get healthy is, very scary. And Javon Carter, man. Shout out Javon Carter, man. He's been pretty solid of an addition. And in my opinion, I think he should get the playoff rotation minutes ahead of George Hill, but might get stumped because of the vet ting. But yeah.
I mean, this is just my take, and I'm sure, any stat counter would disagree. But I do think that at the end of the day, the Bucks are the best team in the NBA. Even if the Sixers do have the best record in the league, I just think things are circumstantial. The Bucks weren't actually healthy quite a bit of the season, too, right, TJ?
Yeah,
there was
Brook played the first game and then came back maybe last week.
Mm-hmm. And then same with kind of all their stars not being healthy at the same time, and they're still second in the East. Technically, could be first by the end of this week. Who knows? Um, I think they're the best team in the NBA. So I do just along the Heat and the Suns, maybe the Warriors. I think they are another team to beat. That's really, or one of the teams to beat. But that's really just my take.
Yeah, I've got nothing to add other than I think the Bucks are the one guaranteed team to go far this year. I think they're the one team that you don't want to see in the first round, especially because of how tight the race is currently. I mean, if you look at the sixth seed, like Toronto is only 4.5 games back of the Heat with 7 games remaining, right? So I mean, anything could happen within those last 7 games, and the Raptors could literally end up finishing first if everything were to go perfectly. So. Yeah, how tight this race is going to be interesting in terms of matchups. The Bucks are the one team that I don't think any playoff team wants to see in the East this year. I think they're just guaranteed to go past at least the second round.
That's the fuck I'm talking about. All right. From there, Christian, let's hear what you got to say about the Celtics.
Man, it's hard because I mean, if you asked me this like last week or when pre Robert Williams injury, I would have probably like thrown some biased shit at you guys like, oh yeah, they would make a deep run. I think they really would. But I think a lot of their team now was hinging on like scenario being perfect. And because they aren't like the deepest team in the league. I mean, to be completely honest, I don't even know who's filling the role now. I believe Al Horford has probably moved up to playing center. If I had, because I know they were running like rotations with Al Horford and Robert Williams together. I don't know what it looks like right now, but I just don't think they. Sorry, I'm a bit in a conundrum with this because I do think they are still a really great team. Jason Tatum has like improved his numbers. From what I was reading, he's like been averaging like 37 and 8 since like coming back from the All-Star break. And he's been pretty much been playing like an All-Star or like an MVP like since he's came out of the All-Star break. And I mean, aside from that, I think it is circumstantial, but I think they still have the opportunity to make a deep run. I just think it'll be quite a bit more of a challenge without Robert Williams being there to anchor down the team. It's kind of like the same scenario with the Bulls not having Lonzo Ball, where I just think like the team is like so close to being perfect, and that one piece is like almost make it or break it.
Yeah, the one thing I have to add to that is if that injury didn't happen, that is the one team I would have said like I actually would have gone as far as to say this team is for sure the team you don't want to see. Even better than the Bucks because they have been playing at a higher level than the Bucks as of late. They had all of their guys healthy, right, until Robert Williams went down. And what you always want to see when you go into the playoffs is your team peaking at the right time. And they were doing exactly that. But history once again strikes. And the Celtics over the past decade have always lost a very key rotational player to injury in all of their runs. Right? You look back at Gordon Hayward, Ray Allen, you look back at KG missing time, Kyrie missing time. They've lost a lot of key guys due to injury over the years during the time when they're peaking. And so, yeah, if this was pre-injury, I would have said the Celtics are the one team you do not want to see because they're incredibly deep. They also have a really good coach in Udoka, the best defense in the league. You don't want to see that in the playoffs. And like this team has a lot of playoff experience too. Now that without Robert Williams, we saw Siakam eat Daniel Tice alive. We saw Siakam eat Grant Williams alive. Al Horford's not going to stay in front of a guy like Siakam. How much more guys like Kevin Durant? How much more guys like Vucevic, Joel Embiid, Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler? I mean, on the wings, yeah, obviously, but Robert Williams is that guy. He is that guy defensively that anchors everything that they do. And when you get beat on the defensive end, and the guy passes you, you're pretty confident that thing's going to get sent back when you have Robert Williams behind you. And so that's a whole different dynamic that they've lost on the defensive end and a big part of their success. So I don't know. Let's see if they can continue this. I do like the fact that they have Tice and Al Horford to step in, but it's rough. I don't have the same confidence in them that I did before the injury.
Yeah, nothing to add. That's all very valid. Next year's their year, baby. But from there, Ruben, let's hear you talk about your boys, the Raps.
Oh man, I've been waiting. If there's one team that's gonna be the most poised for an upset, it'll be the Raptors. Considering home court advantage, they're not gonna have home court advantage, but they are the best home court in the Eastern Conference. I think it's just fan atmosphere. It's just a whole different ball game. And for a team like, for example, Brooklyn, if they meet Toronto in the play-in, if Toronto manages to fall back in the play-in, like, Kyrie Irving can't even play in Canada, right? And from my understanding, there are a number of players still on a number of teams that still can't enter the country because of the vaccine rules, right? You can't enter the country if you're unvaccinated. So that's a huge advantage for Toronto. They have a strong home court advantage. And I've seen a lot of media, NBA Today, I've seen it all over the place. The one thing that Toronto still has, and the one unique thing that they have, is championship holdover. Their key guys are all champions. You have championship experience on your team, you're going to have a pretty good slot and a pretty good chance at any matchup. So I like as of right now, they're against the Celtics, and a fully healthy Celtics and a fully healthy Raptors. I think that's a 7-game series. And I do think I would still favor the Celtics in that series. But the fact that it would even go 7 games considering their youth, right? I think that's a successful season for them. And, if there's any other team, let's say they manage to meet the Sixers or the Bulls or the Heat, I like them in that matchup. I don't like them in the Bucks matchup. I think that's a 5-game series for the Bucks. But if they're, like I said, I'm just going to double down on the point that if there's one team in the Eastern Conference that's very much poised for an upset, I think it's the Raptors. The Nets, obviously, but I think that's almost a given considering they have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. So if they can make their way into the playoffs, which I think they ultimately will, I think that's a team that can go very far, regardless of where they're going to be in the standings. Toronto wasn't expected to be in this position, and I think they've exceeded expectations by 100 this year.
Yeah, no, nothing to add. I think a lot of people always forget that their championship's really not that far removed. I think when you have all the players that they have and the fact that OG Anunoby's back, that's definitely not a team I want to see in the playoffs right now. Well, granted, we match up against them right now, but if I'm another team, I don't want to see them. But yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, they're in complete honesty, I think they're built very similarly to the 2019 year that they won. Obviously minus some of the key guys, but I think in terms of how they look and the way they're playing, like, OG Anunoby has very much developed into a very similar, like, Kawhi Leonard type build player. Scotty Barnes is, like, pretty much the equivalent of imagining Anunoby was there that season that they won. Fred VanVleet has obviously developed into a Kyle Lowry type esque player and has been developed by him. I mean, Danny Green is Danny Green. I don't know if they really need him. And I mean, their center player is looking better. So I have no reason to believe, or I really do believe, honestly, that, I'm pretty scared if the Celtics you run into the Raps, because I think the Raps will honestly beat them up. But that's enough. Next team.
I like that. Oh, can I just add, though, that I think the Raptors have found another way to innovate the game, and Nick Nurse has done it once again with the 6'9" ball. I mean, like, there have been so many times this year where they've run Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby, Pascal, Precious Chua, and Chris Boucher, guys who are all 6'9" and 7 feet wingspans. And coaches after the game go, how the hell do we even get into the paint against something like that? Right? And so they've managed to change the game a little bit with the way that their roster makeup is, with guys that are all 6'9", and their point guard is 6'9", and the way that they defend is very much a switch and stunt. They play a really weird scramble defense, which has gotten them in trouble a lot this year, especially for the corner three. A lot of coaches, I know you guys are watching this, so the scouting report is you want the corner three. But, yeah, I think Toronto has done – they've maximized their roster's talent, even though it isn't necessarily there. And I think kudos is to Masai Ujiri, who's built a really weird roster that we've never really seen before. And Nick Nurse, who's done it once again, is one of the most innovative coaches and creative coaches there is in the league.
Yeah, I mean, shit, I can't even imagine running up against that lineup. Next up, we technically have the Cavs. I mean, we kind of touched on them earlier. I mean, this was what could have been an incredible Cinderella season. Is kind of going down the drain, a bit of a disappointment. I mean, do any of us really have anything to add?
Oh, fuck. Yeah, I'm sorry. They like literally in a scenario where they're all healthy, I think they're like a top 3 team. But that scenario is not. Okay, we don't need to go into that tape.
Yeah. I think them being fucked is like perfectly sums it up. Next up, we have the Nets. In my opinion, I don't see them winning this year. I think that's just based off the fact that their team's a lot less loaded, given all the things they gave up. And the fact that Ben Simmons isn't playing, for me personally, I think they go as far as Ben Simmons goes. If he comes back and is not afraid to shoot the ball, they got a chance. But without them, I think as amazing as KD and Kyrie are and how KD almost beat like the Bucks by himself, I'm not ashamed to admit that. I mean, think about it. If KD is wearing like half a size, a full size suit down, I might not be out here like pumping my shit like the Bucks are about to repeat. But I think as amazing and as the capability of those guys to carry a team, that's not a good thing to rely on in the playoffs. You want to have a good cohesive team to run your offense around, to like really going down the stretch, to be like, they don't just have to stop one guy, they have to stop the whole floor. And I think with the Nets and how their team's built right now, I don't think that's necessarily the case. So like if they win the chip this year, be like, okay, that's what you expect. But I think just based off their roster construction right now, they're not as deep as last year, and last year was a pretty deep team. But yeah, y'all got anything to add?
You know what? I would slightly disagree with your take. I think they're still a very capable team of winning the championship this year. I mean, I think you mentioned it, obviously, that they still have that chance, and it's just harder this year with their roster makeup and the injuries they faced. But yeah, Kevin Durant did almost beat the Bucks single-handedly last year, and now he has Kyrie Irving back full-time. And they also do have a plethora of shooters now, right? Seth Curry is a really important piece that they didn't have last year. And they also have, like, even though Andre Drummond and Nicholas Claxton aren't, that kind of depth that you need to take you over the hump, their role players have played exactly to what they should be doing. And it's a matter of getting the rest of your team healthy. If you think about it, Kyrie Irving was, healthy for 2 games, and then James played 1 game or 2 games at 30%. Right, he came back early from an injury. So I think if Kevin Durant is rolling in the playoffs, which he's shown time and time again that he's going to do, it's just kind of hard. I think as much as I love I love Joel, I love Jokic, I love Giannis, Kevin Durant is the best player in the game. And if you have the best player in the game on your team and rolling, and I think you have a good chance anytime, regardless of your current standings, your makeup. LeBron's done it before. We've seen Kevin Durant do it. Last year he took that really crappy injured team to 7 games. Was it 7 games to the Bucks? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, and it went to overtime too in Game 7.
Dude, That was an awesome game. I think that's one of the greatest games of all time. So, and that was all Kevin Durant. So we'll see.
Yeah, I really don't got nothing to add. I mean, okay. Well, I guess I should clarify. I think I am kind of leaning towards Ruben's opinion, although I think they're it depends type of team more than anything. So I feel very neutral here. I think if Ben Simmons were to miraculously, appear though, I think they would be the team to beat. But that's all circumstantial. So I'm not gonna add to that.
Boop. Okay. Alrighty. Next up, we got the Hornets. Christian, how you feel about the Hornets?
I was pretty high on the Hornets last year, and I don't think that opinion has necessarily changed all too much. I think they're still just the fun team that we all kind of know, though. I think they are going to be one of the teams that, alongside teams like maybe the Cavs and the Raps, that they are just a young team developing into a better and more solidified core as they grow. I could definitely see them coming out of like the play-in, but I don't think they're going to be any of those top dog teams. I mean, they're just young. And just looking at the standings right now, kind of thinking about, players that they have, I think it's going to be a good year for them to have playoff experience. Because if I'm not wrong, they weren't in a playoff position last year.
They got to the play-in, but I think they lost to Indiana or something. They didn't make it up, though.
I don't remember them making the playoffs. I have bad memory for all those listening. So, I'm going off a whim most of the time. But, yeah, I do think this is going to be a good year for them. And they'll just be happy to be there more than anything. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing I have to add is you're not going far in the playoffs if Montrezl Harrell's your starting center. As great as Montrezl Harrell is as a bench option, I think if he's your starter, a little hard. But I will say, I do hope they make the playoffs just based off the fact that I think playoff LaMelo would be fucking amazing. I think that kind of will be calling cards / the recruiting video for, if you're a center, aka Miles Turner, maybe want to come play with the big boys in Charlotte, play for the GOAT. But yeah, that's all I got to add.
Yeah, I'm gonna loop in the Hawks in with the Hornets. So I think we can finish off this point. Is I think Cleveland, Charlotte, and Atlanta. I think any two of those three teams can make the playoffs. I think the Nets are pretty much the guaranteed team to get into the playoffs. But it's going to be interesting who ends up actually being that 7th or 8th seed, or that other seed aside from the Nets, unless the Raptors fall back into the play-in situation. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I like the Hawks actually because of the fact that they were in the Eastern Conference finals last year. So I think if there's anybody that's looking down on a team that we shouldn't be, it should be Atlanta to make the playoffs. So yeah, I'm just going to loop them in. I think that they all have very similar chances of making the playoffs and having a few good games.
Yeah, before we get to those, I want to say, I think the Hawks will make it out to play-in, but I don't think they'll have a very deep playoff run just based on the fact that they don't have John Collins. He doesn't have his number 2 with them. But alrighty. Ruben, to start off the West, let's talk about the Suns, bro.
Yeah, you know what? The Suns have been dominant all year. They've been the best team in the league. I think I based on how the season has gone for Golden State as well and their injury history, I do see them in the finals again this year. I do see them in the finals again this year. I don't want to play them. I wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs. I think they're the most dangerous team. They have every piece covered. There's not really much you can say about them at this point because they've proven it last year. They've proven it throughout this season. And there's only one other team that I would say that I do not want to see in the Western Conference playoffs, and I'll just throw them in. That's the Dallas Mavericks right now. But yeah, I think the Suns are going to go far, and they're my favorite to come out of the West this year.
Yeah, no, I think if anything, this regular season is kind of just an addition / kind of adding validation to the fact that their run last year, even though there is like a little questionable things here and there, it's legit. They're a legit team. They're a legit contender. You know, I'm excited if they do make it to the finals. I think that's a nice little rivalry they got going on. But yeah, anything, Chin?
No, honestly not. I think they are like solid as much as I don't want to admit. I don't know why. I don't have anything against the Suns. I think it's the fact that Devin Booker is compared to Kobe so much. I think that really bothers me because I think Jason Tatum is really the real incarnation. But you know, that's for another episode. I just think like, yeah, when it's all said and done, they are the best team coming out of this season. And I do see them coming out of the West alongside another team, in my opinion, and that's the Warriors. But that is that's personal bias.
Yeah, you can't claim to be a Kobe disciple if you're getting distracted by a fucking by a mascot. But either way, the Warriors. I have the Warriors. So for me, I think I speak for all of us and everybody in basketball when I think it's gonna be such an amazing thing to see Dub Nation in the playoffs again. They've been out for 2 years with the fact that, you know, injuries are definitely a big part of that. I think that speaks to how, you know, injuries can really play a big factor in things. And this team is loaded, first and foremost. I think for me personally, aside from obviously seeing the Splash Bros play in the playoffs, I'm excited to see Jonathan Kuminga. I think he's a dude I'm incredibly high on. And just the fact that all the young dudes they have, this team is set up for not only to win now, but win in the future even. And yeah, I mean, they're going through a bit of a rough patch right now, but I mean, what do you expect when you don't have your best player on the team right now? Granted, the Grizzlies are a bit of a asterisk to that, but yeah, the Warriors. I definitely have the conference finals being the Suns and the Warriors this year. That's what I'll say. And then whatever happens there.
I concur.
I think I agree. Except I think Dallas could make the Western Conference Finals too. I think they can make the Western Conference Finals. After the trade with Porzingis, they brought in Dinwiddie, who is... this is why I said there's one team you don't want to see in the West right now, and I strongly feel like it's the Dallas Mavericks because Luka Doncic has been on another level the second half of the season. And after the trade with Porzingis, they brought in Dinwiddie, and he's hit so many big shots this year. And when you have another important bucket getter, right, you know, which they didn't really have, Porzingis was supposed to be that guy, but you have Dinwiddie, who's been proven, and he's been, for the longest time when he was in the Eastern Conference, he was the CJ McCollum of the East. Right, in my opinion, as he's that bucket getter, that guy who's very much a fringe all-star caliber player. You have him alongside Luka. Jason Kidd has played a lot of the Brunson, Luka, and Dinwiddie lineup, and they found a lot of success. Dorian Finney-Smith is a really good 3-and-D player, and I like their center rotation. They're deep, they're well coached right now, and which I never thought I'd say about Jason Kidd. But dude, I think Dallas is such a dangerous team, and I don't want to see them in the playoffs because when you have Luka and all these different guys can create shots, like the playoffs are all about the half court, and so far Luka is the most supreme half court player there is. Right, he can create shots anywhere, and he's just playing at another level right now, and you see how everybody else is playing off of him, and they really mesh well, especially after that trade. So. If it's not Warriors and Suns, I think you can put Dallas into one of those spots.
Yeah, I mean, just based off that, we ain't gotta talk about Dallas anymore. I wouldn't be surprised again. I think Luka's showcasing that he's the generational talent he is. Got a lot of flack in the early year, but now that he's off the hookah, and getting back into shape, man's a hooper. All right, from there though, Christian, let's hear your thoughts about the Jazz.
Man, why you gotta give me the Jazz? No, I'm kidding. I mean, okay. No, I'm not kidding. The fuck. I honestly have not been high on the Jazz for at any point. Maybe the bubble Jazz, like I think they were pretty fire, but at the same time, like that was bubble is like the biggest asterisk in any like NBA season that will ever exist. That being said, this season I just think um I don't know. I think like coming out of the like all-star break, like how we mentioned when we were talking about this, I think they pretty much are looking like the Jazz, doing Jazz things, 4 and 6 in their last 10. Um, like obviously not any huge news about the Jazz. I just think this year is gonna have probably be their last year where they're going to try and make that run. And if they don't, surprise anyone, I think there's going to be something that happens next season, whether it be offloading. It's probably going to be Donovan Mitchell, um, given that no one's probably going to want Rudy Gobert with that fat ass dump truck contract that they have on him right now. Um, yeah, I think they have to make a deep run for it to be considered a W of a season. Like I think if they're not a conference final team, their team will be blown up at least a little bit. That's my take.
Yeah, I think only thing for me is that I don't give a fuck about what the Jazz do in the regular season. They could go 82-0 for all I care. They gotta do that shit in the playoffs. I think that's just the legacy of the Jazz, man. I mean, they've always had a bunch of good teams, but yeah, never been able to put it together. That's all I really got to add. Rubes.
Yeah, I mean, I did see the Twitter timeline, and Donovan Mitchell was complaining that it's the same thing as last year. And I've seen rumors that Quentin Snyder is a bit on the hot seat right now. So I think I agree with Christian's opinion that they've got to do something this year. If not, I'll happily take Rudy Gobert on the Raptors. I'll take that dump truck contract and give me that 7-2 center with all that length and all that destruction in the defensive end. I'd be happy to take that. So if they don't go far, that's great. You guys can have Kem Birch.
Kim Birch, the fuck? All right, I'm heading from there. Ruben, let's hear that same energy, man. Let's hear you talk about the Nugs.
Oh, dude, I love the Nuggets, and they've been able to stay afloat despite not having Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray, which apparently they might get back before the playoffs. So, without those two, I would say great season. First round exit, you guys played valiantly this year. But if they get those two guys back at anywhere near 75%, that's a dangerous team. So I am on the fence about them until we see those two guys come back. But if they do, like they've been rumored to come back the last month and a half or so, yeah, I think that's a second round team. And Jokic has been playing all kinds of amazing basketball this year. I mean, if it wasn't for all the voter fatigue, Jokic could very much win MVP again this year. So yeah, let's see. I don't have much to say about them other than if they get those two guys back, I think they're as dangerous as they were last year, and could make a deep run too.
Yeah, the only thing I got to add is I think that's why you draft not necessarily a one and done player. That's why you get a nice kind of older prospect in Bones Highland, someone I'm very incredibly high on. And yeah, I mean, fully healthy, this team's, in my opinion, probably one of, if not the most loaded teams in the West. What about you, Jin?
Yeah, we've had this discussion, DJ. I think they are when healthy, I throw this statement out a lot. But I think in a circumstance where they are healthy a whole season, I think they're a top 3 team in the West. Just because of how influential Jamal Murray and Mike Porter Jr. could be for a team that, is obviously kind of running on the backs of role players plus an MVP. I think that team very much could be a top 3 team. But yeah.
Nice. From one top 3 team to another team that's good but not top 3, we got the Timberwolves. For me, I think, as amazing as their season's been, I would not be surprised if they're a first round exit. Or they're technically in the play-in right now, right? Either way, I think regardless of how they do, I think they'll get that reality check that playoff basketball is different. You know, the calls aren't as easy to get. You know, again, like we've always mentioned, the game shrinks a lot. And the Timberwolves, they're a solid team. But again, I think just the lack of playoff experience and the lack of, you know, metal and grinding out shit like that, I think that'll get them kind of exposed. But, I mean, that's why you also have a guy like Pat Bev. So I could literally just be chatting like bullshit and who knows. Man, I might fuck around and go second round maybe. But either way, yeah, I think this will be a good year for them to really start to dip their feet into the playoffs. And, man, next year, I think with the fact that you're bringing back that whole team basically and you have, you know, Pat Bev coming back again, it's going to be solid. Yeah, y'all got anything to add on that?
I think it's pretty much the same take I almost had for the Hornets, really, is that they're going to be a happy to be here type of team. Where, you know, like, I think for Cat to finally have some playoff experience, he's okay. Now, I'm probably wrong, but I don't think he's ever. No, has Cat been to the playoffs? Someone fact check me here real quick.
I think 1 year, but it was obviously like a first round exit. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I'm sure that was quite a distant time ago. I just think for them to be poised to kind of have Cat back in that position is the most important thing, because I'm pretty confident in Cat in being like a top three. Well, he is a top three center, I think, in the league, undoubtedly. But I think this is to position him to kind of elevate the next year, and so I think just to be able to develop in the playoffs is like an important thing for them. I don't think they're beating whoever they go up against, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much to add. I don't have much to add about them. I think they'll make some. They'll have a nice first round. That's what I'll say. I think the West is just too good up top for them to make any crazy noise this year. I like Cat. I like Anthony Edwards. Just it's the West, even though it's not as deep as it was, and I think the East in terms of like playoff depth and contenders, I think the East has got that in the bag. But the top is way too heavy. I just don't think they have it against a team like Memphis or Dallas, even the Warriors and Suns, obviously. So that's it.
Oh fuck! I mean, we forgot the Grizzlies, but I mean, we've talked about a lot in the pod already. We're all very high on them. I definitely expect them to make another deep, or not another. I definitely expect them to make a deep run. They're going to be the Hawks of this year, but in the West. And yeah, I mean, yeah, we've talked about a lot. So let's just move on to the next team. So it was technically the Clippers, but we talked about them earlier in the pod. You know, bright little spot coming up next here. But from there, Christian, let's hear you talk about the Pels, my brother.
Bruh. Giving me these fun little teams to talk about. You know, if I'm being 100% honest with you guys right now, if there is a team in the NBA, okay, no, they're not the singular team. But if there's one of the playoff teams in the moment that I don't keep up with a ton, probably is the Pels. Singularly for the fact that Zion Williamson is not playing. Like, if there is like anything I'm keeping up with, it's probably Zion news. That being said, I mean, they obviously have been more impressive coming out of All-Star break. We didn't really expect them to be in the position they are right now, and for them to be in front of the Lakers, much like how I talked about the Clippers, it's pretty astounding. I think, you know, obviously, like, they've put it together. They do have, like, CJ McCollum, who's been, from what I know, performing quite well since he has come onto the team. I just think it is still, like, good to see that progression, and obviously that trade has done dividends for them. I think it's just a matter of like what the next season looks like for them. That's important right now. In terms of playoff run, you know, as Ruben said it best, have a good first round, maybe. Okay. Yeah, I can see them. I can see them in the 8th round. Or in the 8th seed, sorry.
Rubes, you got anything, bro? Or all kind of the same sentiments?
Yeah, all the same. I mean, Pelicans, Spurs, Lakers. I mean, the Lakers are shit. So,
I would love to shit on
whatever.
the Lakers for a bit if you guys want to shit
Yeah,
on
dude.
Of course.
Yeah, like Pelicans and Spurs are whatever to me, and whatever if they make it. I don't think they will. I think it'll stay as is in terms of that top 8 with the Clippers and Timberwolves there. Dude, the Lakers are hilarious, man. What an awful team. I mean,
Bro,
dude, they're starting Wendy and Gabriel at center. Like, I don't even know who this dude is. This dude came in and played the Raptors really well, and granted, he is a solid player. And but a lot of it is just, the best chance is, having a chance, right? And Wendy and Gabriel is taking full advantage of his opportunity because that team is garbage. That team is garbage, right? And they've been constructed garbage, and a lot of that falls on LeBron James, and that roster makeup makes no sense. So
yeah, legit. Hire that.
yeah,
man.
whatever. That team is so bad, dude. Like, that team is so bad, and I hate the fact that LeBron wasted such an amazing individual year. Like, honestly, if the Lakers were in the top of the conference, I think LeBron could win the MVP this year.
I think he'd be unarguably the MVP if they're top.
Oh, yeah. Dude, 37 years old and you're putting up incredible numbers like that. He wasted a season. And, yeah, that team sucks. And they traded away all of their assets.
I know. So, New Orleans is like, fuck yeah, maybe hit the mega lick on them.
Dude, that team is so bad. And, like, THT, they decided not to trade away THT at the deadline for Kyle Lowry last year. I mean, they've just been full of terrible mistakes since they won that chip. And, like, that chip, look, people are going to be like, yeah, people are going to be like, oh, LeBron, the Raptors are an asterisk chip. Like, no, you play the teams who you have in front of you. But the bubble was a whole different thing, man. Like, that was just... They shouldn't even had a season last year. They shouldn't even had a bubble that year. But whatever. I mean, I just hate the Lakers.
I will say though, you can put an asterisk to every chip.
Yeah.
The fucking biggest one is definitely on the Lemicki one.
Yeah.
Lemicki. I will say though, honestly, you put Buddy Hield on the team instead of Russell Westbrook, I think they're in the playoffs. Wholeheartedly. If you just have a better fitting roster. I mean, fuck, man. Can you just imagine?
Dude.
Buddy Hield on that roster? Oof.
Bro, the Blazers are 4 games back on the Lakers. God, dude.
And they had Dame for like more than half the fucking year, yo.
The Lakers are so bad.
Oh my goodness, yo. I mean, yeah, that's where... I think when it comes to the Spurs, you can never count out Coach Pop, so I think there's not much to add there. But man, fuck the Lakers, bro.
Yeah, get that team off my screen. They've had 40 national TV games this year to only bonk every one of them.
My gosh, bro. The Sixers and the Bucks was like the earliest game, and then the fucking last game was the shit. Or not? Okay, the last one was the Clippers. Either way. Man.
Ugh, garbage.
I think at least not even a hot take. Unarguably, this is probably a worse year than like the year with Dwight Howard and Steve Nash and Kobe.
Oh yeah,
because they still made the playoffs.
Yeah, they still made the playoffs.
They were still 7. Dude, the Lakers are still ass. Like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, Rob Pelinka, take your job back, bro. But all right. All that shit talking aside, let's get into the Blacktop Showdown. So because of time constraints and the fact that we all kind of got to work on some stuff, we're just going to do a 1 round, but this is a loaded round. This is tier 1, baby. So, Ruben, give you a number 1 to 4.
Oh, you already know. Number 3, baby.
Number 3. Oh, you got one of the greatest players to ever play the game. The round mound of rebound. The god of March Madness. Commercials. Charles Barkley. Christian.
Guarantee.
Give me a 1 to 4.
Give me number 4.
You have in my opinion, already the second greatest power forward to ever play this game. From Sapolia, Greece, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Oh man, it's already over. Give me that, dog.
Hey, we'll see what happens here. All right. So, Ruben, get your phone ready just so you can have that timer out, bro. And it's, I guess, give us a little countdown once you're ready to start. And we'll go 3, 2, 1, and boom.
All right. I'm gonna go 3, 2, 1. Charles Barkley, the round mound of rebound. Everybody knows he was a monster on the offensive end, man. And let me tell you, at 6'6", he played bigger than he was at his size. I mean, bro, if you look at his numbers, man, like he averaged 28 points one season. I mean, the guy averaged 14 rebounds 1 year. I mean, he's a guy who could pass the ball. He could do everything on the floor. He was the one guy that really changed the game of basketball in terms of being at his size, being at his frame, and being able to be so versatile. And in so many ways, created the likes of guys like a Giannis Antetokounmpo, of a LeBron James, all of the frames and all of the level players that we're seeing now, the versatility that they have in their games. Charles Barkley was a bucket, and mind you, he was doing this during the time there were the best power forwards in the league, like Karl Malone and biggest centers. He did it all, man. Charles Barkley could do it against anybody. All right. Teamer. That was a teamer.
All right, Shin. Get your minute ready, then count us down.
I'm just gonna make sure I have my timer in front of me. Okay. 3, 2, 1. All right. So, what can I say? Giannis Antetokounmpo, in many ways, is, I think, one of the most polished players we'll ever see in the NBA. You know, Ruben makes a good point of how Charles Barkley is kind of the first prototype of what Giannis is, but that pretty much states the sentiment that Giannis is the perfect version of what Charles Barkley could have maybe been. Giannis has obviously shown improvement all throughout his seasons. He has 2 MVP awards. He's already won Defensive Player of the Year early in his career. He's got a chip up, not a chip on his shoulder. He's got a chip, something Charles Barkley obviously couldn't do. And I think, not to kind of talk about it emotionally, but Giannis, in many ways, has just shown that he is going to be one of the best players of all time. That's my minute.
All right, Ruben, 30-second rebuttal. On you.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, Giannis is great, but when it comes to the blacktop, he's quite frankly very much a in-between guy. And let me just say, Charles Barkley has a 104.5 defensive rating, which is actually better than Giannis's this year. As a one-on-one defender, he can actually get quite a bit done, and his frame and his size, he's got strength to level out a lot of what Giannis does on the blacktop. Jesus Christ, man. Dude, it's so much different with the phone as a timer than seeing it on there.
All right, Chin.
This round is 30 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. 3, 2, 1. All right. So I obviously haven't talked a lot about Giannis's statistics, and I think that's very much going towards the fact that if you were to talk about his statistics, you could go on and on in such an early career. He's literally averaging 30 points this season, and he's only maybe third in the MVP race. He is already greatness. He can shoot much better than Charles Barkley, and in a blacktop scenario, I think there's just so many more ways for Giannis to score than there is for Charles Barkley, and there isn't really a scenario where Charles Barkley, his fat ass can actually win. I'm lost for words today. Giannis is clearly the better player, but you know what? You can give it to Ruben. If
I don't know. I don't know about the clearly better player.
Clearly.
I don't know, man. I think it. Man.
I mean,
seen a lot of Charles Barkley. You know, I've watched a lot of old hardwood tape.
Yeah.
That dude was a freaking beast, man. I'm telling you, like he was exactly what Zion should have been.
Oh.
He's exactly what Zion should have been.
All right. In terms of deliberation,
I don't know.
I think you both made compelling arguments. I will say though, Christian, I think you very much leaned on his resume, you know, and like, you know, mentioned a few things here and there, but you know, I'll have to give this one to Ruben. But you know, obviously, if a bias is set aside, you know, bias is implied. Obviously, you know.
I love Giannis. I think he will go down as a top 10 player of all time. But
yeah, that's
damn,
right.
like I don't know, you know.
All right, Ruben, you have the potential to switch out for Shaq or Anthony Davis. Would you like to switch, or are you gonna?
Oh, dude. All right. Well, let me try and switch out.
Okay.
Let me try and switch out. Give me.
All right.
Give me one.
You know what? I'm gonna bring up a coin flipper thingy. We will say heads for Shaq and tails for AD, and I'll just take whoever. Okay, you have Anthony Davis, and I got Shaq. All right.
All right. Let's go.
God, let me set my minute up here. Okay, I'm going in 3, 2, 1. Now, if there's any player that's built for the Blacktop, it's Shaquille O'Neal. He's obviously the greatest force to ever play in this league. I mean, he's the owner of unarguably the most disrespectful highlight of all time. He backed down that Knicks player. I don't even remember his name. Nobody remembers his name because the only thing they're going to remember him is for that highlight. Now, a young Shaq, we've seen his ability to run the floor. Obviously, that's not necessarily a thing you need for the Blacktop, but the fact that he's able to do that could definitely be a alarming thing for a guy like Anthony Davis, who's got glass for knees, and you know, this is a guy that everybody's saying, oh, one of the greatest defenders of all time. He ain't got no fucking defensive player of the years. Now, when it comes to Shaq, this dude is a literal truck. There's nobody who could ever like defend him like that. And I think when it comes to Anthony Davis, that's barbecue chicken alert, baby. He can back him down every position. It don't fucking matter. Shaq is the fucking greatest, most prolific force to ever play the game. All right, Groob, on you, bro.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Shaquille O'Neal is a monster, 100%. But when you're going to check it up top, I like his chances to be able to back Anthony Davis in. But what Anthony Davis has and has helped him over the years against big, solid guys, against his wiry frame, is his length and ability to jump off the floor. He has got the athletic advantage in so many ways in terms of his ability to jump right off the floor. So if you're taking their primes and looking at them all together, yeah, Shaquille O'Neal in the post is a much stronger presence, but Anthony Davis is also one of the top defenders in his prime. You might have said, oh, he's not going to be able to do much against Shaq. That's a 4-time all-defensive selection, and the reason let's put him up above a lot of other defensive players is his ability to read and react and his ability to use his length. Offensively, we already know that he can spread the floor. He's got a much more versatile offensive game than Shaq. So if you're looking at the offensive end, I think Shaquille O'Neal also has admitted he's not a very good defensive player, so Anthony Davis has that advantage. All right,
my rebuttal, 3, 2, 1. For saying he's not a great defensive player, he's 3-time all-defensive. This is a guy who has an MVP. He literally has the resume that everybody projected Anthony Davis to have, but does not have. When it comes to the Blacktop, you got to be a force. And Shaq Diesel, the truck, can't nobody stop that force. Even though Anthony Davis, you know, granted, you know, he's this generational defender or whatever, he ain't got much shit to show for that in terms of, like, accolades. When it comes to one of the greatest to ever do it, one of the biggest forces to ever play this game, that's Shaquille Dr. O'Neal. I go ahead, Rubes.
All right, 3, 2, 1. I think we underrate his defensive ability too much because of the fact that he's been injured. But if you take away those injuries, I think you're looking at Anthony Davis with a lot better of a resume in such a young early career. Anthony Davis is a force on both ends, And I think the advantage that he has also on the offensive end with his ability to create anywhere on the floor gives him a huge advantage against a guy like Shaq, who is known to have very limited lateral ability and quicks on the defensive end. And offensively, I think Anthony Davis is as good a bucket getter there is at his size. That's a pretty rough one. I mean, you're putting everything aside and having to argue Anthony Davis against Shaquille O'Neal. It's like arguing. It's like arguing like that Dorian Finney-Smith is better than LeBron James.
Yeah, this is tough. Ruben, I think this is parallel to a very similar Blacktop showdown we had maybe a couple weeks ago, where DJ, I think, how did it go?
It was like, did I have Seth Curry? Oh no, I had like, I had someone and you had Zion.
Yeah.
Oh, the Miles Turner and Zion thing with you too?
I don't remember. Okay, anyways, I just think it's hard because justifiably, without even any bias, Shaq would literally like
he would eat Anthony Davis.
He would make Anthony Davis bend over like with his.
He would give him the back shots pod.
The back shots pod, baby.
Anthony Davis would be calling him daddy, but that being said, DJ's argument was very emotional and very lenient on his nicknames and just like his prowess. But I respect it because that's like what Shaq is, you know? He really is just like this big ass dude that can really like take it anywhere. As much as Ruben's argument, oh god, this is tough. Because Ruben has this gravitational pull that he uses with his words. He uses like $10 words.
That's the whole part of arguing. That's the whole part of debating.
I'm gonna have to give it to DJ. I think
it's fair.
I am convinced enough that Shaq would really take Anthony Davis to the paint every possession.
I don't even question that. Anthony Davis is getting eaten alive, bro.
Yeah. Fucking 7 foot bitch that can't play center.
The comeback is real, yo. No, yeah. Unless Anthony Davis jacking up threes, he ain't fucking winning that. But either way, that concludes another episode of the Blacktop Podcast. We appreciate y'all tuning in. Continue to tune in. Put your homies on. All that good stuff. But yeah, before we end off, boys, you got anything to say?
Man, shout out to everybody tuning in. I know we took a break, March Madness, and we're all busy, but we thank you guys for still watching and keeping up with us as little as you are, and hopefully we continue to grow. So share this with your friends. Hopefully you guys like it and share your feedback because we'd love to know what you think about us and our podcast.
Yeah, I think ditto to what Looming said. Like, we are just a growing podcast, and you know, we're just 3 Filipino dudes at the end of the day trying to just like be passionate about what we're passionate about. And you know, if you guys got passions out there, I mean, not that we are really advocating to hear about them, but you know, you can tell us about them. But anyways, what I'm trying to say, what I'm really trying to say is, you know, like keep following us for what we might continue to evolve into. I think this is really like the start of something, and you know, we want to be here for the hype when it comes in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. With that, stay safe, stay blessed. We will see y'all soon.
Peace.